What's up, YouTube? I'm here to do my predictions for UFC Fight Night Magomedsharipov versus Kattar. Let's start the bomb. The first fight is Grigori Povova versus Davy Grant. And Povova, I think he's a little bit better in the striking. I think on the ground it's probably slightly edged towards Grant. My biggest fear is that Grant has always had these huge gaps in between fights. I feel like he hasn't fought in like 2 years. And, his record's like 2-3 in the UFC. And like I said, his inconsistency is just so crazy. He's been in the UFC for like 6 or 7 years and he's only fought like 4 or 5 times. So I just feel like his inactivity just scares me too much to even consider picking him. And I think Popova is probably just going to keep it on the feet and outstrike Grant and just win a decision. Next is Pena Kinzada versus Jessica Rose Clark. And to me, I really think that this is pretty close. They're both strikers with pretty good grappling, primarily grapplers, both of them. I think it's just kind of whoever ends up on top is probably going to win, and I'm just leaning towards Pineda. I think her wrestling's a little bit better, so I think she's going to end up on top a little bit more. I think this will be a close fight, but I think Pineda is going to win 2 of the 3 rounds in 29-28 decision. Next is Alexander Yakovlev versus Roosevelt Roberts, and to me, this depends on Roosevelt, how much better he's gotten since his last fight. I think we saw he's not that great off his back, and his striking needs some work overall. I think he's really long, and he's good at kind of using his length, and his offensive wrestling is really good. It's just he just needs to work on mixing it up and being more proactive. I felt like he's been way too defensive in his last few fights. I think he needs to just go back to what worked for him, use his wrestling more, and I think that if he uses a wrestling-heavy attack, he should be able to win this fight. My biggest fear is I don't know if he will be able to do that. I think Alexander's the better striker, and he is probably the overall better grappler. He's definitely the bigger man of the two. It's so tough just because, like I said, Roosevelt didn't look super amazing his last fight. When he was on bottom, he really didn't look like he could do much. And my biggest fear is Yakovlev is good at creating scrambles. And I feel like if he's on top, I think he can finish. And I think that's what might happen. I think Yakovlev will eventually wind up on top, and when he does, I think he's going to get a finish from either TKO or submission. Next is Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus David Zawada, and these two guys are both really good strikers. I think Nurmagomedov is the better striker, but I wouldn't count out Zawada. I think that he is also a really good striker, and we have seen Nurmagomedov be caught before, as technical as he is. Like I said, I think on the feet and on the ground, Nurmagomedov is a little bit better in both, and I think as long as he doesn't get sloppy, he should be able to edge out the decision, so I'm leaning towards Nurmagomedov. Next is Roman Kopylov versus Carl Robertson, and this is 2 really good strikers. I think Carl's a little bit better on the ground, but I don't think it's going to go there. It's really just whose technique is better in this fight. I think Roman's the better power hitter, but I think Carl's the better technique guy. And like I said, I don't think either of these guys are going to be able to get it to the ground. I think they're too good at keeping it on the feet. And like I said, I'm just leaning towards Carl. I think he's a little bit better of a striker, and I think that he's going to edge out the decision. Next is Rustam Khabilov versus Sergey. I can't say this guy's last name. And to me, these two guys are similar. I just think Rustam's better everywhere. I think striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Rustam is a little bit better at all 3. They're pretty similar style-wise. They both like to grapple. They both have some striking, but like I said, I just think Rustam's better everywhere. He is moving up to welterweight, so he might be a little bit smaller, but I think his better technique everywhere will help edge out the decision for him. And I think he just wins a 30-27 decision. Next is Mamed Ankalaev versus Dolce. I can't say this dude's last name. Dolce looked really good in his UFC debut. He's got good striking, really good wrestling, but I don't know how he's going to look against Magomed. I think Magomed, he was undefeated when he came into the UFC. His one loss was a fight he was dominating the whole fucking fight up until he got caught in the triangle against Paul Craig. And then since that loss, he's won 2 or 3 in a row. So he's like 12 or 13-1. And to me, I just think he's the better technical striker, and his takedown defense is going to be better than Dolce's ability to get it to the ground. I think Dolce's the more physically powerful man of the two. He probably hits harder, but I don't think it's really going to matter. I think Magomed's technique is going to be much better, and I think Magomed's just going to be able to keep it on the feet, stuff the takedowns, and edge out all 3 rounds. So I got Magomed winning a 30-27 decision. Next is Shamil Gamazat versus Kilton Abreu, and Abreu, to me, hasn't looked super amazing in his UFC career. I felt like his last fight was super close. I thought Alvey won. And then his other fight, he got knocked out. I feel like coming into the UFC, he'd been knocked out a couple times. And, he is a really good jiu-jitsu black belt, but I think on the feet he's just okay. I think Shamil is the better striker of the two, and I think on the ground he's really solid there too. But Kilton's a really high-level black belt, but I think Shamil should be able to keep it on the feet or survive it on the ground. But either way, I think Shamil's the much better striker, and I think he's eventually going to catch Abreu and win by knockout. He's a really solid up-and-comer. Keep an eye out for Shamil. Next is Rosamond Emi versus Anthony Rocco Martin, and this is a big step in competition for Rosamond. I think that he's looked amazing so far in all of his fights. He's shown great boxing and great wrestling. He really doesn't look like he's had trouble at all with any of his fights. He's been able to control it wherever it's been at. This is a big step in competition. I do think Anthony Rocco Martin's the better striker of the two. I think his submission offense is better than Eve's, but I think Eve's ability to control fights is better than Rocco. This is probably the toughest fight in the whole card to call, because I do think this is the toughest fight Eve's ever had in his entire career. But he's fought some really, really good dudes, and he's looked amazing in pretty much every fight I've seen him in. I'm going to slightly lean towards Eve, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Rocco can knock him out. Like I said, it's hard to tell how good Eve's going to look against someone this good, but if he looks like how he's looked against everyone he's fought, I think Eve's going to win 30-27 decision. Next is Kads Imagov versus Ed Herman, and to me, Kads just looks like he's a decent striker with a pretty offensive wrestling game. I didn't think he looked super amazing in his debut. That could just be because he took it on short notice, but this fight, I think he's also taking on short notice, so I think he might run into the same problem. I think that Ed Herman's a little bit better with his boxing, and I think he's a little bit better with his submission game. I think Kahid's, he could probably take Ed Herman down and control him for 3 rounds, but who knows if his cardio is going to be good enough to hold up to do that. Ed Herman is getting older, and he is getting easier to catch, but I think that this is a fight that he can win. I think that as long as he can kind of survive the first round and a half and starts picking up the pace towards the second half of this fight, I think Ed Herman's going to get a late 3rd round finish, just like what happened in Kahid's last fight. So I got Ed Herman winning by 3rd round knockout or submission. Next is Zalim Imadav versus Danny Roberts, and to me, Zalim, he's a really, really good striker. He's a little flashy and that can put him in bad positions sometimes. And I think if Danny Roberts can capitalize on that, he can win by submission. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but I definitely think that's a high possibility. I think Danny Roberts has been knocked out quite a few times. I think it's pretty safe to say that Zalim is a good enough striker with his power that if he catches Roberts, he's probably going to knock him out, and I think that's what's going to happen. Zalim just needs to not be as sloppy as he is with his striking. I think if he's technical in this fight, he'll win by knockout. I think he's the better striker and more powerful striker. And his wrestling is definitely better. It's just if Danny Roberts is on top of him on the ground, I could see Danny Roberts submitting him easily. But like I said, as long as Zalim is smart, he should win by knockout in the first. Next, we got Alexander Volkov versus Greg Hardy. And to me, all Alexander Volkov needs to do is avoid the first 3 minutes. If he can just not get into a crazy punching exchange with Hardy in the first 3 minutes, he'll win. He's way better everywhere on the feet and on the ground. He's the much technical striker. He's the much more technical on the ground. Like I said, I think that other than the first 3 minutes, he's way better than Greg Hardy everywhere. And even the first 3 minutes, I think he's overall better. It's just Greg Hardy's best chance of winning this is just going out there and fucking winging shots. And a heavyweight, you know what I mean? You do that, you can knock out anybody. Like I said, other than that, I don't think Greg Hardy has much of a chance. I think Alexander Volkov's got the better conditioning, better volume, and I think he's going to win by knockout in either the 2nd or 3rd round. And finally, we got Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Calvin Kattar. And to me, I think on the feet it's pretty close. Calvin Kattar's probably a little bit better with his volume and hits a little bit harder. But I think on the ground, anywhere this fight's on the ground, Zabit has such a fucking massive advantage. It's really not even close. Kattar has decent takedown defense, but he's never fought anyone as good at wrestling as Zabit is. I think that, like I said, Zabit just needs to get to the ground, and once he does, I think we're going to see him start to dominate. I don't know what round that'll happen in. I think that, he just needs to be smart about it. But when he does eventually get it there, I think we're going to start to see the fight slowly shift towards him. I don't know if he'll finish it the round he gets it to the ground, but I do think it's going to wear Calvin Kattar out. And I think that come 2nd or 3rd round, Zabit is eventually going to win by rear naked choke or something like that. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.